Hello friends, my name is Jerber. I watch BLs to talk about a bunch of other queer things as well, but today we're talking about BLs. Now, as far as in my real life, when it comes to BLs, I am a solitary force, okay? I'm talking about a bunch of shows none of my friends have watched over and over again. And typically when I'm doing that, I'm talking about shows that are odd. That is not to say that I don't watch like normal BLs. I do. I just typically don't want to share that information with people who aren't paying attention. So like a lot of the shows that I watch are, you know, your standard, these two people fall in love in high school or in college or in the office, miscommunication, slow burn romance, blah, 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 blah. You get it. BLs are an offshoot of the romance genre. So most of the romances are typically very simple, but then there are some that are really, really weird. And that's the topic of today. I want to talk about some of the more out there kinds of BLs that I've seen. A couple of disclaimers. Once again, these are things that I have seen. I have not seen every BL in the world, obviously, but also there have been way more coming out of Thailand, Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, that I can keep up with, that other people can keep up with. So there's just a lot going on. Second disclaimer, I'm not going to talk about things like Omegaverse or things like that have like established lore and history behind it. Is it weird? Depends on who you ask, but that's kind of the point. There's a lot of people talking about it already, so that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about shows that, like, for the most part, have no basis in what they tried to do or did, and yet they did it anyway. Shout out to them. I'm also going to talk about my reception to said shows, because some of them were absolutely great, regardless of how weird they were, and some of them not so much. If you are a BL fan and you saw the title of this video, you know that I had to put this in here because we have to talk about, first and foremost, a little show called Choco Milkshake. So before I get into what the show is actually about, Choco Milkshake is a show that was created by a production company called Strongberry that exists in South Korea. There is a like phrase on the internet called "In Strongberry We Trust" because they tend to put some sort of more out of the box shows, but they all really tend to be very well done. And good thing, girl, because this show is about pets who reincarnate. Let's go. So yeah, I will try to give a little bit more context, but that's really the point. The show is about a character named Jung-Yu who wakes up one day to find that his childhood dog and cat, Choco and Milk, have reincarnated into humans, kind of. The way that the show explains it is that they were in, I guess, pet heaven. They were in pet heaven, okay? It's not that's real. They were in pet heaven and sensed Jung-Yu's loneliness, decided to travel back to the material plane and came back as these people in order to basically soothe his loneliness. And loneliness is the theme of the entire show in, I promise you, the most beautiful way. Over the course of this very short show, we find out that Jung-Yu has lost his parents and essentially spends most of his time by himself in his own apartment, even though he has an uncle who like tries to check in on him every now and again. He is most of the time by himself, and it really takes a toll on him emotionally. He just doesn't know how to express it. Then you have these two people enter his life who essentially have the souls of longtime friends from the past. They were animals, but still, regardless of the weird setup, you cannot help but feel emotions as you watch this man re-experience what it means to be loved, supported, cared for, seen, or just acknowledged. They cuddle on the couch, they go to work together, he has more conversations than he's probably had in months, if not years. And it's really easy and heartwarming to watch someone who's clearly been so touch-starved, intimacy-starved, etc., finally getting that. And then he kind of falls in love with his dog, but it's not a dog. It's not a dog. It's not a dog. Like come back. It's a person. It's a person. It's a person who was a dog in a previous life and is now a guy. And him and the guy who, you know, was a dog before, but is now a man. The two of them share emotions, okay? It's really hard to understand, but if you're watching it, you're in it. If you're in it, it's great, okay? Like you gotta stick with me. And I'm not the only person who thinks so, okay? Choco Milkshake was a smash hit people love this show outside of just me. And again, for good reason. It's a really well done show. And at the core of it, at its center, it's about this person overcoming loneliness by just having someone in your corner. I know very personally that when it comes to the idea of loneliness or abandonment issues, there's only so much that like self-care or working on your self-worth or confidence can do. Sometimes you actually just need a person physically next to you. Yes, you can love yourself more. You can do more work on yourself. You can invest in creative ideas and practices and go out in the world. But you also sometimes just need community and support. And it's not selfish or a mistake to think that that's something that you want or need. And it's really cool to watch a character get those things, even if it came from his pets who crossed like the heavy side layer in order to get back to Earth to be with him. It's great. Don't knock it until you try it. And if you want to try it, it is actually all on YouTube right here where you're watching this. You can just pause this video, go watch Choco Milkshake, all of it, and then come back and then tell me that you don't feel warmth in your heart. You're lying. Moving right along, going over to Thailand, we have one of, I think, a lot of different parallel world stories, but this is honestly one of my favorites, and I feel like it's very underrated. We're talking about a show called 609 Bedtime Story. 609 Bedtime Story is, I think, the second or third show from the ship Om Fluke. Shout out to that ship. I miss you every day. The story itself is about a character named Mum who in his everyday life is your typical cool guy, I would say. He works at a bar. He also does music at that bar with all of his friends. He takes care of his little sister and lives in this very nice fancy apartment. He's very cool. And then one night, at the stroke of midnight, he wakes up to find a man in his bed who he immediately falls for. They sleep together. And then right afterwards, a stranger in all black with a motorcycle helmet covering his face shoots that man, and he wakes up. What we find out over the course of the show is very Doctor Who, very MCU of it all. You see, over the course of time flowing, there are moments in which, in this apartment 609 specifically, multiple worlds can merge together and meet one another, but only for an hour and 5 minutes. Why the extra 5 minutes? I don't know, but it feels very Thai if you watch Thai BLs. During the show, Mum, and who you later find out is a guy named Do, meet during this timeline merger, but they also find out that their timelines are in reverse order. So the first time Mum meets Do in his world, it's Do's last moments. And as they slowly but surely get to know each other, or at least Mum gets to know Do, he's going forward while Do's going backwards. Inevitably meaning that the first time Do meets Mum in his world, it will be Mum's last time meeting Do. Are you following? It's a little confusing. And it's a little confusing in the show, I'm not gonna lie. But again, if you've watched Doctor Who and you love River Song, you understand that while it is confusing, it's still really fun and really beautiful. One of the cool things that I really love about this show is that over time you realize how small decisions affected these two different parallel worlds. One of the details that has differences that seems small but is actually a pretty big deal in these two worlds is Mum's little sister Mint. The story, I believe, takes place in Bangkok, and in Mum's world, his little sister Mint had a big breakup at the end of college. So Mum moves to Bangkok to be closer to her. But in Do's world, Mint never had that breakup. So Mum never had a reason to move to Bangkok. So that's why he's not in Do's world. If you are a character first kind of person where you're more interested in how the character emotes and feels in a show rather than the plot in the background, this show is not for you. However, if you are very nerdy like me, you love things like world building, parallel worlds, superheroes, comics, etc., this gets really interesting. I love finding out the little details of how this world differs from that world and how these different decisions that people made impact the different universes in this multi-universal show. And I think they do a good job of differentiating between the two worlds. Mum's world is very bright and full of oranges, and it's bright and happy and sweet and lovely. And Do's world is very stale. It's full of grays and blues, and it seems almost sad most of the time. If you're sticking with it and you're in it, it doesn't feel that hard to sort of differentiate between where you are or where the show wants you to be. And as far as the love story is concerned, I feel like it's pretty grounded. Besides, the multiversal apartment, other than that, I don't live in Thailand, so I don't know how well this was received. I sort of found it on a whim because I had seen Ohm and Fluke's previous show, Until We Meet Again, which was a massive success. People still talk about it. And I saw that they did another show and I wanted to watch it. And I don't know what the reception was. I loved it. Are you confused while you're watching it? Yes, but I do think the confusion is kind of the point because they want you to live in the mystery before the mystery is revealed. Because one of the biggest mysteries is, of course, who killed Do, and Mum, who doesn't really know this person at the beginning of the show, is slowly but surely trying to figure out how to solve this murder before it happens. It's a dang good time, besides being weird. Speaking of other worlds, we're gonna get to another parallel world, but first we have to get to a magical world. It's never really defined, but it really doesn't matter. We're talking about love for love's sake. Now, right now, with the research that I have, which is very little, I don't know if Love for Love's Sake won awards, but please trust and believe that it should have. If I could give it an Oscar, even though it's a South Korean television show, I would. It deserved it. No, seriously. I'm going to explain the show, but please know that I think this show deserves everything, especially your eyes. In Love for Love's Sake, our main character, Tae Myung-ah, is a struggling writer who is struggling for more reasons than just his writing. He's a 29-year-old filled with a lot of mental issues who talks to a friend who also might be a wizard. It's never clear. But his wizard friend transports him without consent to a virtual video game world where he has one specific goal. That is to find the character Chae-won and make him happy. To be clear, this show and the world is not shy about this character living in a video game. He has an entire UI interface in front of his eyes whenever he's doing stuff, which gives him like main quests, side quests, telling him when he's failed or completed a mission. But what starts as a weird sort of concept ends up, to me, being a sort of Truman Show, what dreams may come level of abstract interpretation of what it means to live. Yeah, live, honestly. What we learned throughout the show is that Myung-ah himself, before he got into this world, was severely depressed for a lot of reasons. And we don't touch on that in a lot of ways initially because of the way that depression works sometimes, which is that if you're being given a task, especially if that task is to take care of someone else, you sometimes don't realize that you need to take care of yourself because you can easily ignore that fact. The show is about love, but it's also about self-love, and it's also about self-introspection, and it's like a therapy session in a television show, in a video game world stuff. One of the things that I think is a really, really good aspect of South Korean BLs, and I think Japanese BLs does this really well as well, is that they dive into the genre that they are focusing on. The show, yes, has a little bit of humor and chaos and craziness, but when it gets to this serious, dark place, because that's where we're always meant to go, it really dives into it. There are times in which our main character, Myung-ah, is not taking care of himself, denying himself, ignoring himself, and the video game starts to break and almost starts to break him. And we watch him try to struggle with what that means, even though I think the show does a really good job of not letting us in on what the actual core message is by having all of these breaking moments of the fourth wall or the world itself, or closing him in when he thought he was in a bathroom, but now he's in an office or in a classroom. The world gets chaotic and crazy and messy because his world, his brain is also chaotic and crazy and messy. And we understand what needs to be done, but we don't get it almost until he gets it, because we want to and need to go on this ride with our main character. I added this show into this list because yes, it is a little weird, but also, my God, is it profound. I love when writers just say what they mean, and I think it's really important and it's really impactful to just let it out on the table and tell the audience exactly what you want them to hear. But I also love when movies and TV shows forced you to go down this sort of Alice in Wonderland type rabbit hole where you're not really sure where you are or what's happening or what your motivation is, but you keep moving forward through this tunnel, through this journey, and eventually get to the other side, realizing that every single moment beforehand mattered and had a point to it. From the moment that Myung-ah stepped into this world and was given the objective, make Yoon happy, every single piece of information from there mattered. And you follow this super interesting, complex journey that at its core tells the dark, depressed, and isolated that you deserve happiness. I wish I could erase the show from my memory and watch it again for the first time, because it's just fantastic. And now that I've said all that, we're going to get to something that is not fantastic. Because I have to talk about a show that came out this year called The Boy Next World. Now, for reference, the show The Boy Next World was created by a writer named Mame, who is very famous and pretty controversial in the BL world, especially in Thailand. For starters, Mame is one of the originators of Thai BL as a genre. She was one of the first people writing BL novels in Thailand. She got very, very popular, and now she has an entire Mame cinematic universe, or the MCU, not trademarked. And that world is not all great. She's also very famous for having very outdated, very tropey things at the beginning of her career, trying to make them a little better as she went and moved on. Some of them are hit or miss. Love in the Air, a show that I'm not talking about because it's pretty freaking normal, is an entire hit. It's so good, it's so perfect. The Boy Next World is a miss and a half. So this show starts off as weird as all of the other shows that I just mentioned. A character named Pukan, who for all we know is a pretty normal college student, gets a knock on a door one night during the middle of an intense storm to find an upperclassman named Sir or Suris at his front door, who has just run from the hospital to inform Pukan that he is not the Sir that he knows, but actually a different Sir from a parallel world. More stuff. In that parallel world, Sir and Pukan are actually lovers. So we go through this entire story with Pukan not sort of believing that Sir is from this parallel world, even though he does seem attractive and Sir is definitely in love with him. And as the show goes on, Pukan thinks that maybe Sir is from a parallel world where they're lovers, since he knows all of these intimate details about him, all the way down to what color his favorite lucky underwear is. So here's the thing. Before I continue, I just want to make a disclaimer about this show, that I'm going to spoil the show. I'm going to spoil the show. If you wanted to watch the show, if what I've said to you is interesting enough for you to go watch the show, go watch it. Stop this video, go watch it. If you don't give a shit, I'm going to spoil it. I'm going to spoil it because it's bad. Because it turns out that Sir is not from a parallel world. At least not this one. The one that we're watching on TV, that Sir, not from a parallel world. He's just a stalker. In Pukan's past, he has this memory of in high school making those like cup string sort of like walkie-talkie things, and one of the pieces dropping to another classmate in the lower level of his school. He reaches out via the cup to try to ask who may have caught the cup, and in Pukan's memory, no one answers. Sir tells him that in his world, he did answer, and since then, they were lovers, they became high school sweethearts, and they're still together to this day. That didn't happen to him. He didn't answer. He didn't answer, but instead decided to use his resources, power, and money to stalk Pukan, including knowing which college he was interested in attending, and then went to that college first. Now, is this the first stalker in BL? No, but it gets worse. Because again, like I said, I'm spoiling the whole thing. So sometimes Sir has different dreams that also inform us as the audience that parallel worlds probably do exist. He keeps sometimes showing up in this white room with another version of him, and he doesn't understand it. There's also a moment where he wakes up in the bed with Pukan, who is making sweet, loving eyes at him, and then goes, "You're not my Sir, who are you?" Making sure that we know that parallel worlds do exist, so that maybe this Sir is telling the truth. He's not, by the way, he's not telling the truth. And then we have one of the stupidest moments in the history of writing, which is that after Pukan finds out that Sir has been lying to him this entire time, is not from a parallel world, and is actually just a freaking stalker, Sir gets hit by a car and goes to a parallel world. That's not completely true. He gets stuck in that white room that's in between worlds, I guess, and a different Sir from a parallel world enters his body. One that doesn't know Pukan at all, has a big chip on his shoulder, and is a huge asshole. And then the show splits into 3 stories for a little bit. There's the regular world that we've been watching this entire time, where Pukan is now talking to Sir, who hates him and also doesn't know him, and is being mean to everyone around him. And he doesn't understand what's happening, because a few seconds ago, he not only was in love with him, but in a stalker-y, illegally kind of way. Then there's part 2, which is our sir, who's in this like white room with a different sir who's like, hey, you have to stay here for a while for some undisclosed reason. But please know that in every universe, you and Pukan are meant to know each other in some way. And then we have a third world that I do think is important and valuable to the story. If it mattered. In the third world, we find out that the alter or nega sir from this white room had his own life where he didn't meet Pukan until well later in life where they were working at the same company. That sir was a huge dick to everyone he had ever met. And while he started to fall in love with Pukan and his sweet kindness, it was a little too late. A disgruntled employee who was tired of sir's abuse ends up stabbing and killing him in front of Pukan. And we realize that sort of the missed opportunity of their love was kind of the cause of why this world ended up the way that it did. Now, I've spoiled a good chunk of this show. And so I know what you're thinking. That sounds really cool. Sounds very interesting. Why is it a bad thing? Oh, I'll tell you. Because after all of this information is found out, and after Pukan in the other world, or I guess the main world, realizes that he does love Sir and wishes he had his old stalkery man back, the other Sir, who's been stuck in the white room, who's from the real world, from our world that we've been watching, comes back to his body and is now the regular Sir again, except he doesn't remember that parallel worlds exist. He doesn't remember being in the white room. He doesn't remember the story that was told to him about what happened in this other world, about them not meeting and falling in love. He doesn't remember any of it. All he remembers is being a stalker. So then what is the point? What is the point of having a bunch of parallel worlds and parallel universes where these different things happen, and explaining not only to us as the audience, but to the main character who's been a creepy stalker this entire time, that parallel worlds exist? What is the point of doing all of that if the character is not going to remember any of that happened? So what you have in real life, right? If we didn't have any view on any of these other worlds, right? If we were just watching the main world exclusively for the entire show, what you have is a college student who finds out that an upperclassman has been stalking him since he was in high school, and then that upperclassman gets hit by a car, has amnesia for a few days, comes back as the stalker man, and then the two of them start dating? What? Oh, I completely forgot to mention that the B couple of this show involves a man who for some reason has telepathy, like legitimately can read people's minds. He reads Sir's mind, so we know that he knows that he is a stalker this entire time, but doesn't do anything about it. And I remember when that moment happened and I went, oh, there's a man with telepathy. Still weird, but we're dealing with parallel worlds, so it's probably fine. And I'm assuming that this man who has telepathy and can read minds will surely play a pivotal role in uncovering all of these secrets. Because if Sir is from a parallel world or has memories of a parallel world, that's a really hard thing to understand or to believe. But if you have a character who can read minds and can prove to you that he can read not only your mind, but that person's mind, he becomes an essential perfect lie detector. But does any of that happen? Does any of that happen? Is he involved in this story at all? No. None of that happens. He goes into his own B-side story, and we basically never hear from him again as far as him being important to the main story. He's in B couple. The B couple is cute. It's irrelevant to the stalkery nature at hand. This show makes me angry. It makes me physically angry, actually angry. I also will say, I just have to point this out, that I made a TikTok about this when I finished the show, about how ridiculous this was. And I had multiple people in my comments telling me that I was wrong because I, quote, wanted Marvel. I wanted Marvel, and instead it was a BL. No, I didn't want Marvel, diva. I wanted a coherent, cohesive story that made sense. To the point where if you just wanted to write a show about a man who has a stalker and then falls in love with him, you could have just done that. Again, BL is an offshoot of a romance genre. There are plenty of romance books, novels, movies that do this exact same thing. It's not good, it's not ethical, but it exists and people read it and watch it. You could have just done that. Mame, Come here. This is for you. This is for you specifically. This is just nobody else. Everybody go away. Go away. It's me and Ma'am. We're just talking. Hey, girl. Hey, hi. I don't know what that was. Excuse me. Let's never do it again. Let's keep that. Let's keep that in our little noggins. Let's keep that in our craniums. And we'll just move on. Okay? You gave me love in the air. All right? You have points from me for a while. So let's just move on, girl. Whew, breathing. Okay, and we're gonna get to our final show on this list. And that show is called Anti-Reset. A man falls in love with a robot. That's the show. That's it. And it's great. It's fantastic. A man falls in love with a robot. To be more specific, Anti-Reset is a Taiwanese BL that was created under one production company that had about 4 shows come out in succession. These shows then had a bunch of different crossovers with each other. It was very, very cute. All of them didn't really have any sort of like conjoining stories. It was just that these characters either kind of knew each other or passed each other by along the way. And I will say that these stories go from being really weird and supernatural to pretty grounded. And it ended with Anti-Reset. The show starts with Chu Yiping, who is a young college professor who recently had an accident and his arm is now in a sling. He's also very stoic, very isolated, doesn't really have any friends or people he hangs out with. The only person that really actually looks after him is his uncle, who works for a tech company. You see where this is going. That uncle decides to gift his nephew an android named Ever9 in order to sort of help him with his loneliness, but also help him because he can't use one of his arms right now. To be clear, androids are not just like an everyday part of this world. Ever9, for all intents and purposes, is an experiment that was created by this man's uncle. And so they're still working on sort of greenlighting this project for everyday use. Ever9 is also so freaking adorable, okay? He's so cute. And the love story is just sweet. It's so cute. I'm sorry. I understand that he's a robot. They're not shying away from the fact that he's a robot. It doesn't freaking matter. The love is real. This isn't the first show or first story also about the idea of a robot or an android or something along those lines starting to develop feelings, but also that means that they're quote unquote malfunctioning. And that's also what this story does, or how this story goes about. Chu Yiping is finding comfort and support in Ever9 being around and engaged with him, but also Ever9 starts to adapt or change or malfunction in order to understand how he's sort of falling for this person. It's slight spoiler, but there's literally this beautiful scene where Ever9 has been recording and taking memories of his experiences with Yiping, and someone tries to essentially erase Ever9's like memory, and he creates this program that allows him to self-destruct, where one of the technicians basically says he would rather die than forget that he was in love with this man. Oh, get out of here. Go away. It's so adorable. I will also say that this is one of the like most healing, loving relationships on the planet. So there is an argument to be made that Ever9 may fall into the born sexy yesterday trope. And for those who don't know, it's the idea of a character in a story, movie, or TV show who essentially becomes a mature older woman, but with the mind of a child. And it's this weird sort of kind of rape culture-y trope, because men in these positions can sort of mold and manipulate a woman, but because this person is an adult, it doesn't feel as creepy as if they were an actual child. And I bring this up because in the show, Ever9 doesn't necessarily understand what love is at the start of it. He basically does internal research to understand what movies and TV shows say about love, about partners, what he should even call his partner if they're dating. And it feels a little juvenile or a little young. But one, he's not an objectified woman. He's a normal guy in most of these situations. And two, one of the things that I think differentiates this from this sort of Western trope is that a lot of Eastern movies, TV shows, stories about love include this idea of care as well as the romantic side of love. It's not just hot passion and attraction that gets these two characters together. It's the idea of support, being there, caring for one another, taking care of them when it comes to being sick or injured or just needing to be fed or, seen. Ever9 is never there to titillate. He's there to be a comfort and a support for Yiping. And that's where their relationship starts to grow. It's one of the things that I love about BL as a whole, is that a lot of them are about the idea that someone starts to take care of you and love on you. And that's where your love starts to grow, because you decide that, hey, I want to take care of this person and support them as well. And while it's still not the sort of more realistic relationships that we have in the real world of falling in love because you have similar interests or similar goals in life, it feels more grounded than sort of just white hot passion that exists and then you don't ever talk. I personally will take the care and support that turns into romantic love than the sexual chemistry without speaking any day. And if you were confused, there is sexual chemistry. Ever9 has modes, attachments. They don't really get into the details, but they do mention it. So are these stories strange? Sure. Are they good? Mostly. And if you're a romance enthusiast, you know that there are books where women are like falling in love with Christmas trees and having sex with doorknobs. So this should not scratch the surface of weird crap, but it's weird crap that I love, or at least felt worthy enough to talk about. And so I'm glad to have shared it with you. If you have other weird recommendations for BLs or other shows, please let me know. And also, if you like this at all, please subscribe. I'm going to try to put out videos every other week, maybe. If I had to pick, I think I'm going with Robot Love, but also because I didn't have childhood pets, which is, again, he becomes a man. Please wait, he becomes a man.